For decades, children's cinema operated on a simple moral binary. Evil wore a cape, lived in a dark castle, and met a violent, well-deserved end. But over the last 2 decades, the villain vanished from the script. Animation studios realized that the scariest monster isn't a witch with a poison apple. It's the person sitting across from you at the dinner table. The shift towards exploring generational trauma is the most mature leap the medium has ever taken. But it also introduces a dangerous narrative trap. The idea that if a family member's cruelty is born out of their own suffering, you are morally obligated to endure it, forgive it, and fix it. To understand where the modern family dynamics fall apart, we first have to look at when it achieved absolute perfection. Brad Bird's The Incredibles is widely celebrated as a masterclass in superhero storytelling. But its real triumph is that it treats family dynamic not as a passive status, but an active mechanical ecosystem. The Parr family doesn't start the movie as a cohesive unit. They started as a collection of isolated individuals, hiding their true selves from one another to maintain a fragile illusion of normalcy. In this chapter, we're breaking down why The Incredibles remains the gold standard. Healing here isn't a magical byproduct of a shared crisis. It's an exhausting, operationalized shift in behavior where every single member is forced to confront their own ego, lay down their defense mechanisms, and earn back the trust they've broke. While I've already discussed my favorite scenes from these movies in the Incredibles video, I have plenty more examples of when this family functions as a grounded unit. The kids having superpowers doesn't negate them from typical sibling bickering, but when push comes to shove, they have each other's backs, learn to work together, and even cheer each other's successes. All of these positives are definitely learned behaviors from their parents, as Helen and Bob both learn from each other, work together, and even if they aren't happy about it in some fashion, they celebrate each other. This family isn't perfect, but by acknowledging that, learning to get better, and accepting each other, they get closer to that perfection. When a parent inflicts harm on a child, it rarely comes from a place of pure malice. It comes from an unhealed wound. The best films in the messy middle of this spectrum recognize this, using the narrative to expose the roots of parental failure without letting the parents off the hook. In Finding Nemo, Marlin's smothering, overprotecting cage isn't born out of a desire of control. It's the lingering, agonizing scream of severe PTSD. In Turning Red and Inside Out, we see the terrifying weight of the perfect child expectation, where a kid's internal world must be actively suppressed to maintain a parent's peace of mind. This section examines the anatomy of accidental harm. We will look at how these movies draw a line between explaining why a parent is broken and showing the grueling, real-world work it takes for both generations to bridge that distance without erasing the damage done. Coral's death was brought up in a previous video, but this first scene gives the audience all the perspective it needs on Marlin's behavior and outlook. It's not justification for it, it's explanation. Marlin eventually learns that even if he can't overcome Nemo's disability and Coral's death, it doesn't mean Nemo can't. I think that's one of the reasons the second movie isn't ever going to achieve the same place in most fans' hearts. It's a complete retread of the first movie. Sure, it reunites Dory with her parents, but was anyone even asking for that? This movie uses emotional manipulation to sway its audience to care about a family that's honestly kind of dysfunctional. Dory's parents are aware she has a disability, and yet they set up their home right next to a turbulent jet stream? Why didn't they follow her into the pipes? They aren't bigger than adult Dory, and she slides right through those same pipes. They are fish. They'd feel the current like we'd feel a breeze. Surely her adult parents could have figured out what current was strongest through the pipes and followed it out immediately and found her. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I don't give a about Dory. The Inside Out series, as well as Turning Red, explore the time in a family's life when dynamics shift. While I do love both Inside Out movies, I think it's the emotional equivalent of Osmosis Jones. Therefore, we don't really get a lot of external forces. They are present, obviously. Riley's relationships with her family and friends dictate what the emotions are going through or what their end goals are. But the disconnect between these colorful, over-detailed, Muppet-like creatures and the characters in the real world leave this movie feeling like there is a gap.
Turning red gives us more of the outside perspective from all parties. While we don't spend time with May's friends individually, we actually spend a lot of time with Ming. We get to know her backstory, and we realize both May, Ming, and the grandma were all victims of this rigid social structure that dictated the women must keep the very thing that gave them power hidden away. Ming apologizes to the grandma after May meets her on her level, a broken child desperately trying to achieve approval from their parent, and the grandma accepts and provides her own apology. Ming apologizes to May for forcing her to endure the same childhood she did, thinking it would make May better, not realizing that she was only going to push May away and make her feel unaccepted for who she truly is. Everyone accepting and embracing May's decision to keep the panda. Honestly, this movie is the best and most realistic depiction of a family dynamic properly healing. As much as the Pars have their ups and downs, at times I feel they have an unrealistic optimism. Both May and Ming show fear and uncertainty in the moments before May accepts the panda fully, and once everyone can see May is truly in control, she gets more agency and proves to her mom she can live in both worlds, being the perfect daughter and being herself.
And then we arrive at the casita. On the surface, Encanto is celebrated as a beautiful, culturally rich exploration of a family healing from the scars of displacement. But if you strip away the dazzling animation and the Lin-Manuel Miranda infectious score, you are left with something deeply unsettling, a textbook depiction of a performance-based emotional dictatorship. For half a century, Abuela Alma operates a system where love is conditional, vulnerability is exiled, and family members are valued strictly on their utility.
This is where the narrative math fails. In this chapter, we are going to do a forensic breakdown of the hollow apology. We'll analyze why Encanto's resolution at the riverbank isn't a breakthrough of genuine reformation, it's a masterclass in emotional manipulation, where a tragic backstory is weaponized to bypass accountability and force a broken family right back into compliance. Frozen gives us great sibling dynamics. Elsa and Anna feel like they love each other, and even years spent apart wouldn't break that bond. The parents are obviously terrible, not understanding the way to properly integrate their daughters together and choosing to keep them separated is honestly monstrous. Personally, I'm glad they are dead. I can only imagine if one of them was alive, they would probably treat Anna or Elsa unfairly based on their powers or not having them. Alma is a grandma. I never feel the warmth or love from her, at least not to Maribel, Lisa, Bruno, or Dolores. And if I'm being honest, all of the gifts are the result of the grandpa's sacrifice. And the casita? That's the grandpa. Yes, I'm saying this is Latin Monster House. Alma gets the family and town to systemically bully any of her children or grandchildren she or any of her favorites deem lesser than. Bruno isn't cursing anyone. He's warning them to be aware of what their futures can hold. Them not heeding his warnings is their fault. He tells Peppa about the approaching storm because she can control the weather. She could bring a slight breeze to clear the clouds. Instead, she has a mental breakdown, and I'd bet she beat her husband at the honeymoon. The fish needed to be fed, and the guy needed to be fed less. All of these issues people had could have been solved by themselves. Maribel is a great character with a sympathetic arc, but I never feel true resolve for her. They should have just made her Captain Marvel at the end and given her a ton of powers. Instead, I imagine in about a week or two, everyone in town is going to start referencing how she doesn't have powers and is lame. The tragedy of Luisa isn't just on screen, it's reflected in the real world. Disney completely misjudged their audience, over-manufacturing Isabella dolls, while Luisa's merchandise flew off the shelves. Why? Because audiences instantly identified with the crushing weight of having to be the strong one, under a toxic matriarch. Part of me thinks Luisa is also suffering from aspects of toxic masculinity, being she has super strength and invulnerability, which are usually attributed to males. I asked my sister her interpretation, and she said, "Good question. I think it's related to women carrying the weight of the family and work and everything on their shoulders to keep things from falling apart. It's an aspect of what it means to be a woman, and more particularly a mother. I think it's a very complicated topic, and that's probably why her character is so well liked. She is conflicted and has a lot on her shoulders. A lot of people can relate to that across genders. I got a comment from Gray Songway. He said, the only part of Luisa's song that gets me every time is, was Hercules ever like, yo, I don't want to fight Cerberus? Because he didn't. He literally went to Hades because the king of Mycena wanted him to do all these stupid errands for him. I'll leave the rest of the comment here so you can read it yourself, but this was a really good comment to leave. If you ever want to leave a good comment like this, please go right ahead. And also hit the hype button. That would be super cool of you. And I'm going to go on a bit of a tangent here, just with the Luisa character in particular. I think that what my thought is with the toxic masculinity thing is, I have a cousin who was, a softball player. She's a big, burly girl. She's a strong girl. And she was always kind of treated like one of the boys. And I feel like that happens a lot to girls of a certain type, is that, if you're a big, tough girl, you're kind of treated like one of the dudes. And that can have that rub-off effect of not being able to express your emotions in the same way, not being able to be vulnerable and open and feminine because you're so hard-pressed into this box that somebody else has kind of put you in because of your stature and your size and all of that. So I totally get what my sister was saying too about the motherly aspects. Mothers are, the head of the household to a lot of the degree. It totally makes sense, but I also don't really see Luisa just as a motherly character. This is just my point of view, though. I think that it's a very complex situation. Luisa, in particular, is one of the best characters in the movie and definitely my favorite part of the movie. I think that they did Bruno and Mirabel extremely dirty. I think that Mirabel is just not really having a true resolution to, what is going on. I mean, she never gets a power. Her power is that she gets to call out her grandma, and then her grandma doesn't really ever get any resolve after that. So I think that Encanto fails in that. Whereas in Turning Red, there is a through arc of satisfactory apologies and accountability, and you see everybody evolved afterwards. Nobody has, just continued to live the same life that they were. They're all learning to live a new type of life, accepting this new thing about May and all of themselves and just everything in general. So I think that there's a better way of acceptance in Turning Red versus Encanto. Again, I feel like in a week, it's just whatever and nobody cares. Those are my thoughts. This is going to be the conclusion. I have another comment to show, and this is actually a part of my script. It's by A Wolf Soul, and it really resonated with me. It says, I've asked myself why I buy the mom's apology in Turning Red, but not the grandma's in Encanto. It's because we can actually see in the movie how much the mom cares and how she's trying her best to be a good parent to Mei Mei. Whereas in Encanto, she truly just seems to despise having Mirabel as a granddaughter. We can directly see how Ming's mother shapes her decisions, all in the name of doing what's best for Mei Mei. Abuela, on the other hand, went through hard times, but is she trying to do what's best for Mirabel? No, she is trying to hide her away. I need more than a sad backstory to make me believe that she wants to do better.
Stories matter because they give us the vocabulary to understand our own lives. When a movie tells a child that a parent's trauma excuses their cruelty, it teaches them to mistake compliance for peace. The Incredibles works because the family changes how they live. Encanto falters because the family merely changes how they sing. As creators and consumers of media, we have to start demanding more from our stories than a beautiful melody and a hasty hug at the finish line. Because in the real world, the house doesn't just rebuild itself. And true healing only begins when the person who broke the foundation finally admits they were holding the hammer.